Since you guys seem to enjoy, or should I say you are ignited to anger by our top 10 strongest symbiotes even Knull fears list, we at Top 10 Nerd have decided to bring you part 2. I'm Adam Andrews, and let's not waste any more time, shall we? Coming in at number 10 today is Carnage. I saw a lot of people didn't like how we said Knull would fear any of the symbiotes, and obviously not. It's just a list of strong symbiotes that could actually potentially cause a problem for Knull in the right circumstances. For example, Knull wouldn't fear Eddie Brock or Carnage, but they both took him out when they applied themselves and gained power boosts. Being a red symbiote, Carnage is quite a bit more volatile than others of his already violent race. He is unpredictable and possibly even stronger than Venom in terms of raw power, but he becomes even crazier after bonding with serial Cletus Cassidy. As Cletus was already a serial killer before becoming Carnage, the extra aggression caused by the bonding with a symbiote only made him more cruel and dangerous. Carnage was such a threat to Venom that the Lethal Protector decided to form a truce with his enemy, Spider-Man, in order to defeat him. Now, Carnage was able to create weapons as well as crazier powers like traversing data and phone lines to attack people on the other side. But Cassidy's Carnage is actually pretty weak if you compare him to some of the other symbiote's hosts, like Norman Osborn, who bonded with the symbiote and then used his Goblin Serum to become the utterly terrifying Red Goblin, or when it bonded with a fraction of the power of a symbiote dragon. But more recently, Carnage has been traveling the multiverse by itself, gaining incredibly powerful boosts to its power that have even allowed it to take the life of an alternate reality Knull, the symbiote god. Number 9. Payback. Payback is Mavis Trent, an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. who bonded with a symbiote that isn't exactly a member of the same race the other symbiotes like Venom and Carnage are. Her symbiote is more like an offshoot or cousin of the Clintar race. Payback is an energy-based symbiote rather than an organically based one, which as you can imagine makes her rather unique and pretty powerful, with some cool different symbiote powers to boot. While having all the usual superhuman enhancements, Payback can also fly and produce electromagnetic manipulation in the form of microwaves and electromagnetic pulses. The symbiote itself had previously bonded to her father and had imprinted with his personality and memories, which transferred to Mavis when they bonded. Now, the symbiote also feeds off of its host's bliss without hurting them, which actually sounds quite lovely compared to regular symbiotes. The energy-based quality of Payback's ability is what gives me the reason to believe that it could pose a problem for Knull. This is pure speculation, like literally the rest of this list and the previous part, but given the sheer power of other light and energy-based heroes and how Knull is a god powered by darkness, I have to assume that Payback might actually be able to do some damage in the right circumstances, but we'll never know. Number 8. Mr. E. The symbiote god and creator Knull was able to manipulate the living beasts he commanded in a number of different ways, ultimately resulting in his army of symbiotes. But what kind of flew right over my head was that Knull went through a few experiments before getting the symbiotes just the way he wanted them. Mr. E is the alias of a primordial proto-symbiote created by Knull as one of those early experiments, of which there are indeed a few. The proto-symbiote developed his own plans of galactic conquest, traveling to Earth, taking a host in the form of Louise Tuttle, and then infecting a number of scientists at Cape Canaveral with offshoots of himself, turning them into shadow servants. This gave him a shot at using these scientists to modify a space shuttle to emit negatron particles intending to transform the sun into a black star. That would basically take us all off of the playing field, except of course for those Mr. E wanted to turn into shadow servants to serve him as his own universe-conquering shadow army. This act pitted him against Captain Universe and saw him defeated by that hero, but Mr. E was brought back by Knull, who decided to give his creation a second shot. So, wanting to impress Knull, Mr. E stole the ebony blade from the Black Knight in the past, creating eclipses and bringing him into conflict with Ulik the Troll under the request of Uatu the Watcher. Attacked by Spider-Man, King the Conqueror, Rocket Raccoon, and Captain Marvel, he was eventually defeated and given to the Collector, but I hope he comes back at some point. Number 7. Silence. Andrea Benton was accidentally bonded to a separated piece, or I guess we can call it a clone, of the Venom symbiote when Flash Thompson as Agent Venom tried to protect her, leading to her debut as the new sidekick Mania. Now Mania is pretty awesome and she looks super cool, but she's not that strong, and she was eventually separated from the Mania symbiote after she was possessed by a demonic Hellmark, later bonding with the reborn Scream symbiote, arguably the most powerful of the Life Foundation symbiotes. Now, Later on, Carnage corrupted the Scream symbiote and Andy used her Hellfire to wipe it out for good, or so she thought. Turns out that Alchemax used the symbiote's remains alongside a sample of the anti-Venom symbiote to create a somewhat brand new symbiote known as Silence. Andy bonded with the symbiote thinking it was Scream, but in actuality it was Silence. She gained a new corruptive touch deadly to other symbiotes, which would at least cause a problem for Knull's creations, coupled with the sonic scream. Now, bonded with the right individual, I do think that Silence may have a shot at causing Knull some kind of problems. Number 6. Codex. In the current Venom series, we follow the parallel journeys of Eddie Brock and his son, Dylan. Eddie's quest takes him through space and time as he grapples with his newfound godlike abilities as the new King in Black. Meanwhile, Dylan remains on Earth bonded with the Venom symbiote under the impression that his father has passed away. Unbeknownst to them, Eddie falls prey to a future version of himself, Meridius, the most formidable King in Black, whose enigmatic intentions unfold over the centuries. Now, the key to saving Eddie from this lies in Dylan himself, who has discovered a hidden power within the Venom symbiote and within himself. In Venom number 15, Dylan unveils his newfound abilities as Codex, known as the quote Chainbreaker. He wields all black the Necro Sword that Eddie obtained after defeating Knull. Dylan possesses the unique capability to sever a symbiote from the hive each time he bonds with it. With all black the Necro Sword, he can extend this power to other symbiotes. An example of this is when he severs Bedlam's hand, which no longer regenerates because it's now disconnected from the Clintar hive mind. Dylan's extraordinary powers allow him to quote reap a symbiote from the hive. This signifies that he's the sole individual capable of standing against a King in Black, who wields near omnipotent power while connected to the hive. Dylan's ability also makes him the only one capable of permanently defeating a King in Black. Number 5. Bedlam. After Eddie Brock's ascension to Knull's former role as a Cosmic King in Black, Eddie was traveling the galaxy by inhabiting different symbiote bodies when he arrived in the Garden of Time after being transported to the future. There, he encountered another King in Black known as Bedlam, who was unstuck in time. Now, this giant symbiote is a powerhouse even compared to the other King in Blacks across time, and that's actually because he's a future version of Eddie Brock's King in Black, who is fueled by rage at knowing his entire existence is heading towards one outcome. As another King in Black who already defeated Knull to become a King in Black, yes, Knull would be afraid of Bedlam. Is this kind of cheating? Maybe a little bit, but it's what has to happen since you guys won't let us just have fun and talk about powerful symbiotes, so it's your fault. Number 4, the Eventuality. On that note though, I mentioned before that Eddie Brock was heading towards one eventual future. That eventual future is called the Eventuality, and that is another being that Knull would absolutely fear. As Eddie Brock travels through time as the King in Black, his timeline will branch many times over. Most branches will continue to perform the King in Black's work to maintain the universe from within, though some, like Meridius for example, unsuccessfully attempt to escape their responsibilities. All of these branches will work for longer than the lifespan of the universe before retiring to the Unbeyond, which is the place that is the opposite of where the Beyonders are from, where they converge and become the Eventuality. The Eventuality supervises and occasionally intervenes to stop his past selves from becoming as destructive as Knull. Number 3, Agent Venom from Earth 1051. Originating from Earth 1051, Agent Venom made a dramatic entrance when the primary Eddie Brock and Dylan Brock were transported across the multiverse. Upon their arrival, they discovered a world dominated by the sinister symbiote Codex, whose oppressive rule was persistently challenged by Anne Weying, who is this Agent Venom, and her fellow symbiote heroes. In addition to contending with the overwhelming threat within their own world, Anne played a pivotal role in assembling a team of Venoms from various different universes. This alliance now stands as the last line of defense against the ambitions of the Carnage symbiote, which is seeking to gain godlike power. Anne's incarnation of the Venom symbiote may not be inherently more powerful than its counterparts, but the resilience and tenacity displayed by both her and the symbiote throughout their trials pretty much serves as a testament to their enduring strength, not to mention she and her squad are one of the only things standing against a Carnage that has already taken the life of an alternate Knull the symbiote god. She may not be able to do much alone, but she's one heck of a big kahuna, so Yeah. Number 2, the Darkhold Symbiote. First appearing in Carnage Volume 2, Number 6, an offshoot of the Darkhold augmented Carnage symbiote bonded with a South African teenager, Jubilile Van Scotter. This symbiote established a psychic link between her and Cletus Cassidy that enabled her to help the Anti-Symbiote Task Force track him down. Now, Jubilile was initially unable to manifest the symbiote beyond it imbuing her with superhuman abilities, but when Carnage summoned the Eldritch god Chthon, she assimilated the Toxin and Ray symbiotes into her own symbiote. Now, due to Jubilile lacking any hatred or malice in her heart, once manifested, the symbiote, unlike its progenitor and siblings, lacked the fangs and claws customary to other symbiotes. Further empowered by the psychic energies of the world through the Darkhold's eldritch magic, Jubilile's symbiote transformed into basically an angelic knight and became powerful enough to banish Chthon back into Calais, but the symbiote and its absorbed siblings seemingly perished immediately afterwards. Its interaction with Chthon and being able to send it back makes me think it could probably do something to Knull too, but we'll never know. And finally, in at number 1, it's the Serpent. Coming out of left field here, Donald Blake is the human form Odin created to house Thor when he banished his son to Earth to teach him humility. Now sadly, Donald Blake broke bad in 2020, hating how he was sent to a mystical world every time Thor took his godly form. There, he ended up taking the life of the Midgard Serpent, absorbed its power, and mixed it with the Odin Force to try and take out all the Asgardians. Now thankfully he was stopped and Loki imprisoned him, but unfortunately a symbiote child created from the King in Black Bedlam, who we talked about before, bonded and took control of the denizen of Limbo known as Darkoth, and infused with magic and wielding a Prometheum symbiote hammer that it created called Helnir, it attacked Asgard, being opposed by Thor, Loki, and Meridius disguised as Eddie Brock. After defeating Bedlam's child, Meridius reveals himself taking the hammer, and Thor destroys Meridius in an awesome display of power that also melts the symbiote Prometheum hammer. As Meridius escapes into the time stream, the amalgamated symbiote metal hammer leaks through Asgard's ground and it finds its way to the place that Donald Blake is being held, dripping down right onto his face and mutating him into a hybrid of himself, the powerful symbiote hammer, and creating the Serpent. Now given the amount of power put into everything I just talked about, I have no doubt that this new Serpent could oppose Knull if it ever had the chance, which it probably won't. And that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm your host Adam Andrews, and you can all catch me on the Flippy Flop on Top 10 Nerd. Until that time though, stay safe and peace out.